practical consequence of overturning the election. The people of Texas elected General Paxton, whether you like him or not. He won the election. He won a primary election where even our local Congressman Gomert ran against him and raised a lot of the allegations that were made in the impeachment process. So many of the issues that were raised, things that the voters already knew about. Some they didn't, but many of them they already knew about. And so the voters had made a decision to elect him to be the Attorney General. And so when an impeachment vote has the effect of removing him from his duties under the Constitution, then we need to make sure that the process is done very well. And it wasn't. The House members did not interview the witnesses. The witnesses were not placed under oath. And we were not even, as House members, given an opportunity to talk to the investigators who were hired to investigate. And so, you know, there were many things that just should have been done differently in order for us to have confidence in the way that process worked. And because the process was flawed, deeply flawed, I chose to vote no.
Now, I've asked the same question of the other people on this call, your colleagues in the House, specifically Reps Van Dever and Hefner, and they take the exact opposite approach, saying that the process was good, the legality was sound. What is your response to them and their approach on this?
Well, they're just wrong. Look at the facts. When you go to listen to the testimony in the House floor, we asked them, hey, did anybody get to talk to the witnesses? No, we didn't. Were the witnesses put under oath, as the government code requires the investigating committee to put witnesses under oath? Literally, that's written into the statute, and they weren't. So we were not presented with the transcript that had been given to us from testimony under oath. We did not get a chance to even interview the investigators. And so whether you believe he's guilty or not guilty is a separate question. You have to have a good process. Process is what separates the United States from third world countries. The worst among us is entitled to the best process. So, you know, whether you're a mass murderer or just somebody who was jaywalking, we give you the best process. And that did not happen here.
So I'd like to give our other participants here on the roundtable a chance to respond to that, if they so choose. Does anybody have anything that they want to add to that conversation there?
Well, Jeremy, again, I respect my colleague, Matt Schaefer. We've been friends a long time. Look, we follow the same process we did to remove a member of the Texas House. We expelled a member of the Texas House. We follow the same process. The General Investigating Committee did their job, did their thing, did their investigation, and we took that vote based on the current process. And so if the same process was followed in the impeachment process. And all these things that people keep talking about interviewing witnesses and cross-examining witnesses and presentation of evidence, that happens in a trial. And those things are going to happen. We determined whether there was enough evidence to move the ball forward. And I felt like there was. I stand by my vote. Remember where this started. This all started about a $3.3 million settlement on a whistleblower lawsuit that got the investigation committee to start looking at things. And there were some pretty egregious things in here that needed to be looked at. And so we followed the process set forth in the rules of the House. Could we have done it different? I'm sure we could have had we chosen to. But keep in mind, too, there was an immense pressure from outside to pressure people to vote against this. And so anyway, I feel like I took the right vote. I feel like the process was followed. I feel like we're in the middle of due process. All of these things will be presented in a Senate trial, just like they are in any other trial. And so I feel confident with respect to Rep. Schaefer's opinion. I stand by my vote and the process that we followed.
Rep. Schaefer, any response to that?
Yeah, hey, Jeremy, let me jump in there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And sorry, I punched the wrong button. I had a call come in my phone. And
no worries.
Up on you. But in response to what Representative Hefner just said, I'll be very clear. I felt no pressure to vote the way I voted because of any outside pressure. I think those that know me know I'm fairly resilient to outside pressure of whatever nature. In fact, I would say the other. I think there was a lot of pressure on members to go along with what our investigating committee had come up with. But I took a principal stand. I know Representative Schaefer and I talked about this in the moment at the time. And again, Matt and I disagree on things from time to time, but on this one, I think we were absolutely like-minded. We'll say this, and not that you have to be a lawyer to appreciate process, but I probably tried more cases than any other member in the Texas House as a practicing trial lawyer of 35 years experience. So these things about due process, of notice, of authenticated testimony, sworn cross-examination, those things mean a lot to me, and they should mean a lot to everybody, because that's why we have a Seventh Amendment, why we have a right to trial by jury. And we did sit as a grand jury. That's the analogy. It's not a perfect analogy, but as a grand jury, yes, a grand jury, talk to somebody that served on one, they hear sworn evidence, depending upon the case and the magnitude and how the DA presents it. But at the very least, there's going to be a sworn complaint of the alleged incident that then goes to a true jury for a real trial. There was no evidence properly authenticated before the body of the House. And again, there was no reason for us to rush to judgments because there was ample time to come back in a special if it was warranted. But the thing, and again, I'm telling you what's in the record. This is in my statement, so I'm doing my level best. I believe I'm in compliance with Governor Patrick's quote gag order. But the fact is that when we went in there and heard it, we did not have any evidence that would be competent in a court of law. It was hearsay upon hearsay.
Let me jump in there because there's a lot of discussion about the grand jury analogy. In a grand jury, when you're sitting in the room and the prosecutor has presented the sworn complaint and he is maybe just up there verbally describing the facts, if you're on the grand jury panel, you can ask the prosecutor questions. You can say, hey, but what about this? Well, if that's true, is this true? You can ask questions. We were not given that opportunity. We were not given any opportunity to talk to the investigators. None. I asked that question on the House floor. Will you bring the investigators in so we can talk to them? I said, no, we're not going to do that. And so those investigators who were presenting this case were never actually available to any of us to talk to them, to ask them questions, or to even challenge anything that they have said.
Well, Jeremy, I would say to that when a grand jury sits before the district attorney, they're presenting evidence that was gathered up by a law enforcement official in the field. And so the grand jury doesn't talk to the law enforcement official generally. They talk to the district attorney, which is what we did with the General Investigating Committee. And I will say this, we had a unanimous vote to remove a member of the Texas House. His name was removed from the board. His name was removed from his desk. His name was removed from his office door. And we followed the same exact process for both of these votes. And so if it was sufficient enough to remove a member of the Texas House, I think it's sufficient enough to send the articles of impeachment further into the process for the cross-examination, the presentation of evidence and everything in a Senate trial. And so we follow the same process. And I don't know why, if it was good enough to remove a member of the House, it's not good enough to send this to the next level, to dig down into it deeper.
The critical distinction on that is we're dealing with impeachment, which is a constitutional provision, which is to be used in extraordinary circumstances where there's actually a threat to the republic, not for lesser crimes and misdemeanors. In this instance, the biggest distinction, though, between those two events is the situation with the other representative. They happened on our watch. The facts happened on our watch. They happened since January of 23. We were all made aware of it fairly quickly after that happened. It was thoroughly investigated. Sworn testimony was taken, and we did what we did. In this instance, and one of the critical questions I asked a member, and again, this was said in my statement, I'm not violating any gag order, was that, my concern was there something in the investigation during the 88th legislature that our committee did that came up with new factual circumstances or events which occurred on our watch? And the short answer is no. This goes back to all of the things which had come up 10, 8, 6 years ago. There was no new news. This stuff was all vetted before the people of Texas. The people of Texas voted. And on that, if there's one thing I think we have to respect, must respect, is the people get to make a decision. I will tell you, we have term limits and we have impeachments every 2 years. We call them elections. And I think the process needs to be respected and worked. So again, though, but I want to say Cole and I are friends. We disagree, but I respect his opinions and decisions. And the members, I think everybody was trying their best to act in good faith. As I said in a group a moment ago, in the crunch time of session, with a week to go, when everything is, bills are dying, you're moving priorities, you've got to get things done, the clock's ticking. It was really just a difficult time where everybody's under pressure to take this sort of action, which again is the reason I thought we could have, if necessary, pursued this, but it should have happened later with more notice to the members. And that was really one of my principal concerns. It seemed a rush to judgment on something that's so critically important and should be so constitutionally rare, that we came in there on day 135 or 136, whatever it was, of 140 days. But again, we did what we did, and what I do want to, Jeremy, focus on this. I serve with senators, Senator Nichols and Senator Hughes. I know all of our senators. I know Governor Patrick. They are going to take their oaths and duties seriously. They will act in good faith and honor their oaths, and they are the jury. And they will do their job, and we will respect and abide by their decision. So the process will continue to work, and I trust that the Senate and Governor Patrick will provide a fair, due process, proper procedures, follow the rules, and give General Paxton a fair trial.
Anybody else want to add on to that?
Look, I don't think the timing of when these alleged facts matter. To say that if they happen before an election means that they should be off the table, that is to say that either one of us could steal votes and be accused of it right before the election, win our election, but then we could not be prosecuted for stealing those votes to win the very election that we're sitting in. And so to say that somebody can commit alleged crimes and that all it takes is an election to wipe that off the table is just crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And people keep referring to Section 665.081 of the Government Code, where it's clearly talking about other removal provisions, not impeachment, and it's talked about local government offices, city council, mayor, and county and precinct races. And so I don't agree that it was vetted in public. I think there were some allegations out there. I don't think everything was out there, and for sure we didn't have all the facts and evidence. The voters didn't, and I don't think that excuses illegal behavior if it in fact happened. And so I think that's what this process is about, is to find out whether or not it happened. And again, I'm comfortable with my vote. I respect my colleagues absolutely and always, but we just respectfully disagree on this issue.
It's interesting that the FBI knew about these alleged acts for years and did nothing. It's interesting that the Department of Justice knew about these alleged acts for years and did nothing. It's interesting that the Travis County District Attorney's Office was made aware of these alleged acts and did nothing. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Well, and I think, but we're well aware how slow the federal Justice Department moves. And so that doesn't mean that they're not going to. I mean, today there was an announcement that a federal grand jury was looking into some of these allegations just today, that it was reported in the Dallas Morning News. And so anyway, I'll be finished with that.